A few months ago, a shocking scene shook the entire world. In front of thousands of his citizens, Kim Jong-un, the undisputed leader of North Korea, shed tears. This unprecedented and heartbreaking image captivated the attention of millions of people. How can an authoritarian leader, a symbol of relentless power, display such fragility before his own people? What secret lies behind these tears? To understand what truly happened, we must dive deep into the heart of North Korea, a country plagued by internal tensions, a crumbling economy, and a population that is growing increasingly disillusioned. Despite his invincible appearance, Kim Jong-un is facing a dilemma that threatens his power, his regime, and even the future of the entire nation. The economic nightmare, a country in ruins. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, North Korea has been living in a disastrous situation. Before 1991, the USSR was a crucial strategic ally, providing Pyongyang with essential economic and political resources. But the fall of the Soviet bloc dealt a fatal blow to the country's economy. Add to that international sanctions, primarily due to its nuclear ambitions, and you have a country strangled by insurmountable difficulties. Today, North Korea's GDP per capita is barely $1,200 per year. Yes, per year. For comparison, that's about $100 a month, one of the lowest in the world. As a result, the majority of the population lives in extreme poverty, with living conditions deteriorating day by day. Famine, which affects a large part of the population, is a part of daily life. The figures are overwhelming. More than 50% of the population suffers from chronic malnutrition. In many regions, hospitals are lacking everything, from basic medicines to the necessary equipment to treat even the simplest diseases. This dramatic situation is repeated throughout the country, where clean water is a rare commodity, and even the most basic needs are out of reach for most citizens. A thirst for power, Kim Jong-un's nuclear madness. Yet at the heart of this chaos, Kim Jong-un continues to invest billions of dollars into his nuclear program. Why? Because for him, these weapons represent his only chance of survival. The North Korean dictator fears an invasion from his neighbors, especially the United States and South Korea, and is convinced that his nuclear bombs are the only guarantee for staying in power. But this obsession comes at a price. Despite efforts to strengthen his military arsenal, the economy is collapsing, inequalities are growing, and the people are silently rebelling. What seemed to be a defensive measure is becoming a trap. While Kim Jong-un spends fortunes to protect his regime, his people are collapsing under the weight of misery. Desertion, a people fleeing their own country. The situation is becoming even more critical. Every year, more and more North Koreans try to flee the country, despite the heavily guarded and monitored borders. This year, the number of defectors in South Korea has tripled compared to previous years, according to South Korean government sources. This is a warning sign for Kim Jong-un, who is gradually losing control over his citizens. But there's another equally alarming problem: the birth rate. North Korea, one of the poorest countries on the planet, is facing a paradoxical reality. Its fertility rate is plummeting. At 1.7 children per woman, this figure is far below the replacement rate of 2.1, necessary to maintain a stable population. A rapidly aging population condemns the country in the short term. The government responds drastic measures. In the face of this disastrous situation, the North Korean government has implemented extreme measures. Abortions are now banned, and those caught performing them face prison sentences of up to 10 years. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un has launched incentives to encourage families to have more children, such as allowances or priority housing for those with 3 or more children. But all of this remains insufficient in the face of a much harsher reality. Families are forced to work tirelessly to survive, and many women are now replacing their husbands in unpaid government jobs. In these conditions, having a child becomes an unbearable burden. The cultural shift that follows is immense. More and more young women are delaying marriage or rejecting it entirely, disgusted by the situation they are living in. Women who once saw themselves in the role of mothers are now faced with a reality that prevents them from seeing the future as anything other than daily survival. Smuggling. The infiltration of the West. Smuggling has emerged and is increasingly expanding. USB drives and DVDs containing South Korean films, TV shows, and music are circulating more and more among the population. These media expose North Koreans to an entirely different reality, one that goes against the regime's propaganda. For Kim Jong-un, this represents a huge threat. He has increased crackdowns to stop this underground trade, punishing severely those caught with this content. But the effect is the opposite. Instead of keeping quiet, people are talking about it more and more, and discontent is growing. Russia, a risky alliance. To try to save his regime, Kim Jong-un has recently taken a colossal risk. He sent North Korean soldiers to Russia to support Vladimir Putin in the war in Ukraine. In return, he hoped to receive military help, fuel, and political support. But this decision could backfire. Why? Because these soldiers had unprecedented access to the internet and consumed massive amounts of Western content, including pornography. Imagine the shock for these soldiers when they return home and tell their families everything they've seen from the outside world. This could cause a catastrophe within the regime. Furthermore, Russia no longer hides its intention to use North Koreans as mere cannon fodder in this war, sending them without training and promising rewards that they will likely never receive. The future of North Korea toward imminent collapse? So the burning question, is North Korea really on the brink of collapse? According to many experts, the country is experiencing an unprecedented crisis. Sanctions, famine, mass defections, and internal divisions are only increasing. Even more concerning, the country's isolation is growing stronger. Kim Jong-un is still hoping for support from Russia, but for how long? And will Kim's daughter, who has been designated to succeed him, be able to keep this authoritarian and repressive regime afloat? The coming years will be crucial for North Korea. One thing is certain, the current situation cannot last. The regime is fragile, and the future of Kim Jong-un and his country is more uncertain than ever.